Okay. All right. There's this next one, Datgantniak at the Flint on Kenny Island. That's what it's labeled now on Google Maps. I've never heard of it, but this is, I guess, a pretty important or well-known place because there's people have a lot to say about it. But this is where it is roughly, on this little chunk of land that's Google calls Kenny Island. Adam, does anybody call it that now?
I think I've seen it on maps, but I haven't really heard anyone refer to that.
Yeah.
But it's very,
like
it is a very distinct island for sure.
Okay. Well, they called it Little Cock Robin in 1942. So this is, if you might be hearing an echo in your mind here from the early beginning slides here. But yeah, Amos Riley says there's a sort of a little slough, long dry, but lately filled with water again. This slough now creating little cock robin and big cock robin. So that's actually helpful to know. This is what they were talking about with Little Cock Robin Island. Before, both cock robins were one single connected piece of land. So sometime before he was talking in 1942. And yeah, he talks about it again another time, saying it was formerly and until recently a single island, but lately it's been cut into Big Cock Robin West and Little Cock Robin East. But talking about this name, I was going to see if they had anything to say. There's a whole lot about the cannery. Oh yeah, here he talks about meaning having flint from Ratka, flint. And then they talk about it's a quarter mile downstream opposite Smith Fulmore's place. And it's one of those things I can go, is there a Fulmore still there now?
The Fulmore Hole on that road is still called, I think, Fulmore Road.
Well, if you look at the Belcher Atlas, there are various parcels belonging to various Fulmores, not Sam, I don't think, but it says, Bertie James said, Sam died long ago, but Lizzie Fulmore, who is Smith Fulmore's daughter, is living there now. I think there was Elizabeth Fulmore parcel on the Belcher Atlas. So that helps to kind of narrow down where it is too. And she says, meaning Flint having used to be a little village there. In early days, there must have been Flint there. Like they don't know of any Flint there at the time they were speaking, but that's what it was named for. And then Wiyot's Galatis, full of knolls in different places, according to Amos Riley. And that is this place kind of far out.
Kind of near Guthrie or Lost Coast Headlands, right? Guthrie, Fleener.
Oh, yeah.
No.
This is, well, not, I mean, relatively, right? So there's Guthrie Creek, which is Lali Shot Deck, which would have been another one on this list, but I didn't include it, but it means wide river, but that's another example of a name that describes the topography, right? It literally means, wide river. But yeah, this is that Wiyot's Galatis, and it's supposed to mean full of knolls in different places. And it's this little bald hill.
Nice.
Yeah. So that gets inland a bit. So there are these other names that relate to how people use an area or what you do there. And the one you just heard, I'll play it again. We actually heard this earlier. Stella Prince and then Dandy Bill. And that's that site that we heard about earlier. But the meaning, according to Amos Riley, is you go through the river there. And sure enough, if you look at, like, once he said that, I could look at, oh, right. So Dala means like along. So you go along. And Sheik is to go in a boat. And Tva, it looks like it means like to cut short or cut off. So it's kind of a shortcut through the river, perhaps. And it's that place that we looked at earlier at the west end of Cock Robin Island. Okay. But yeah, it's a lot like it's a West Sheik up in the region that we're not talking about today, Bucksport, which is another example of this, talking about where you put the boat You put the boat right in. So talking about sort of what you do there, how you use that area. There's Wiya't, where the road goes across, and that's one name for Centerville, according to Amos Riley. And then they're a mouthful. The Watabasanui, where they fish or get mussels. And when I forgot to put here what place that's referring to, but I will show you. That is, again, pretty far south. Where are we looking at? Yeah, south of Cape Mendocino, right? But it's got a name. A second mussel rock north of Devil's Gate would term this rock the Watabasanui, meaning where they fish or get mussels. And sure enough, that tan in there, I can't sort of make out all the other parts, but the tan in there is mussel. Yeah, so handy to, if you know the name and you know the language, then you know something about that place, right? You know that's a good place to get mussels, but that looks to be well out of Wiya't territory, right? And then the last sort of category of place names I had are just a couple that relate to Soulatluk, which are traditional stories. One of them is Wichgun Dawatwoy. And Amos Riley said it means they laid there some kind of doctorial outfit, like meaning, you know, a traditional doctor, so that nobody would ever pick it up no more. I don't know what story this refers to. I think it's referring to some story that was not documented. And so therefore, if it wasn't put down in paper, I don't know anything about it. But it's a place at the south end of Fernbridge. What was that name? Wichgun, right. So we're talking, right, south end of Fernbridge here. So apparently, right, the story may be lost. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody who knows anything about this story in family tradition. I don't know anything about it from written records, but we have a little piece of this story from a place name. And then another one, this last one, Qhili, where the curlew blew through is what it means. And that's a name for Devil's Gate. So that's pretty, again, you would think it would seem to be well outside Wiya't territory, right? But this story, this Soulatluk, I do know because it is one that Jerry James told to Gladys Reichard 100 years ago in 1922. And it's about curlew who, his people were starving because the tide would never go out, so they couldn't dig clams. So they were starving, and so he went north to buy wind and went through all sorts of travails, went north. I don't know if he went to northern part of Wiya't territory or if he went north to the Yurok or what, but it doesn't really specify. But he went north, took some kelp and some other things and exchanged it for some wind. And when he was on his way back home, back down south, the winds picked up and started blowing so hard. And there's this belief in the story that the wind not blowing the right direction is the reason that the tide never went out. So I skipped that part. But anyway, so the wind picks up and it gets really strong. And as he's going by Devil's Gate, he got bashed against the rocks there and died. But because he had purchased the wind, he was successful and his people were saved. And so there's this whole story about that recorded in Reichard's 1925 book. And yeah, that story is preserved in that place name today. And there's more discussion of that place by Bertie James and Amos Riley, and how this place, Devil's Gate, before it says, who is this? Amos Riley. There used to be, before the white people came, a great big hole in there facing north. And there was always a big draft of wind going through there. It blows so hard, northwest wind. We call that place Garush Dashfashani. There was an Indian trail over the hill, and Indians could, if they wished, go around it, but the wind would just suck them in there. So often the Indians would go through that hole. The curlew did not want to go through there, but the wind sucked him right in just the same. So yeah, that's, referring back to this sort of hero story where he saved his people. So those are just handful from my 130 or so that I've been digging through in the last couple of months, but to kind of give you an idea of what we know so far. So I would like to encourage you. Ask me something, anything.
Super cool, Lynnika.
I know. It's
I have
very
lots
cool.
of questions. I'm gonna let other people ask questions.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to like solve all the mysteries, which I know we won't, but it's very fascinating stuff. And I do think we'll be able to solve some of them.
I also do not have any questions. I just wanted to say that this is really super cool. Thank you, Lynnika.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I mean, you could go down many, many rabbit holes and just, it's a 2-year project, but I could probably spend 10 years working on just place names.
Yeah, this is way cool, Lynnika. It's really special to see just like how much of a connection there is between just places and objects and stories, and
Yeah.
that is,
And to me too, like it really helps me. I mean, it helps me sort of piece together the landscape and get a sense of even areas where people didn't necessarily live, but like there were uses for these places. And I'm starting to get a little cranky every time I see like these little posts on social media of like, Humboldt Historical Society, blah, blah, blah. The school, Grizzly Bluff was settled in 1853 and blah, 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 as if like, and that's when the story started. And I'm just like over here going, and who was there? And like, if they weren't living there, like who was using it? And for what did they do there? Because somebody was, right? Yeah. And so I love that going through all of this is helping me and will ultimately help, primarily the tribe, but will help, the ignorant outsider like myself as well to get a better sense and not have the excuse of like, oh, and it was settled in 18 whatever, and then history started. But, really have a sense of the land and who was there, what they did there, where we live.
Yeah, it's cool to see that the South Fork has its own name.
I know.
That was way cool.
Yeah.
Do you find that like the language, I don't know how to ask this, but like, does it evolve, or like the seeing like the secondary name for I forget what it was.
Qhili, that's a nickname for, or that's what Amos Riley called it, a nickname for Eel River.
Yeah, like having like multiple names. Like,
yeah, well, I'll say that it doesn't surprise me, because especially if the names are descriptive, and Qhili is supposed to be like describing like you're up looking down or something like that. And because certainly with things like plants and animals, there are a lot of descriptive names, and you will often have an animal, especially sometimes plants too, that have more than one name. And like, if you think about it, of course, and take any animal, it can be described in multiple ways. And so it's not that surprising. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised that a place could also have a couple of descriptors. Yeah. So you do see, I mean, it doesn't seem like in the records that I'm looking at, it doesn't seem like it's quite as common for places to have, 2 or 3 names as it is for like animals, but it's not unheard of.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. That's very
Yeah, I
cool.
mean, you could imagine, right? You could imagine that Dalat Vashik, right? That's that one that means like you go through the river there, something like that. I mean, you could imagine it could have that name, it could have some other name that like was related to a story. I mean, there's no reason it couldn't, but yeah.
How do you say South Fork eel again?
Shark. And I might be putting the stress in the wrong place, but those are the sounds. Now I want to know if I'm putting the stress in the right place. See if I can find out. Oh, maybe not. Sorry, just nerding out.
Do you want me to stop sharing, Lynnika?
Hmm?
You want me to
Oh,
stop
sure.
sharing?
Yeah, sure.
Stop sharing? Okay. You can share now.
Oh, it's not super important, but I'm just nerding out in my database to see if I can get the stress right. Sock. All right, so stress on the first syllable, everybody. Shock.
Shock.
But we don't know what shok is, so it looks like it means at the something, at the shok. I don't know what shok is.
Wow. Well, do you think you're going to find similar things moving north?
Oh, yeah,
completely-
I'd be shocked if I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time with Amos Riley and Bertie James because they have a lot to say, but also because I've just been trying to crank through all of those notes. But I am now, in the beginning process of cross-referencing those places with your Louds and your Nomlin and Krobers. And it's really hard to take those as a starting point because Loud, Nomlin and Krober, etc. Mostly those two, those three. Really, their spelling bears very little relation to the sounds of Soulatluk, so it's incredibly hard to figure out what they're trying to get at. So I try to come at them after I've found a bunch of place names from, recorded by somebody who, did a good job of transcribing things phonetically. Yeah, and then cross-reference with the badly transcribed sources. So I am starting to do that. You saw a couple times when I would be looking at some notes there'd be a little blurb from John Sherman or one of those other folks, Jerry James.
Well, wow. Well, how do you envision, the kind of the final adaptive format? And I keep on thinking it would be awesome to have kind of a story map, ArcGIS story map of this that we could embed photos, with the language.
Oh,
and
for
the
sure. Well, I
stories
mean, I could see, I would really envision, so like that site Aula over there where the creamery used to be. I would love to have, like, you could click and you could see that historical photo of the creamery. You could see a snapshot from the Belcher Atlas, just because that was closer to the time those notes were taken. You could, if it was a site that had audio, you could hear it. We don't have a recording of that. I don't think it might turn up in the Dandy Bill recordings that I'm very probably. I don't know. I mean, I'm like, it's really hard figuring out because they're not in the same order as they are in Loud's book, and it's really, really hard to hear. So it's extremely, extremely time-consuming process trying to decipher them. But I am slowly deciphering those. But yeah, if there's audio, have that linked. Like if it's that site, that creamery site, like maybe have, links to like the iNaturalist links for huckleberries and hazel or whatever. Yeah. That sort of a thing.
Man, that would be awesome. And eventually this will be on probably a computer at the cultural center or something that that
Mhm.
citizens
We
can
will
hopefully.
make printed maps too, but obviously you can see from the kind of information density that there is that the printed map is gonna just give a bird's eye view. It'll be a map with some names and maybe a little note like, oh, it means water is singing. But on a printed map, you wouldn't be able to encode all that kind of information. We could do some of that by having some QR codes around, here and there on a printed map so that you could get a little bit of that, like audio and maybe some sort of historical reference or something, but it's not going to be as information rich as the GIS map. So yeah, I think whether we're able to do an online version of the public facing map, be great to do an interactive online version, but that might be something that has to carry over into a second stage, of funding, but definitely have it on the computers, have something that can be at minimum, like at Table Bluff and at the Cultural Center.
I think that would be awesome resource for tribal citizens
Yeah.
and
Yeah, well, and this is I
virtual.
kind of skipped over it, but I'm hoping that we'll get some family pictures, family stories, whatever it might be about some of these places that we can include too, because I'd really like to hear more, not just the voices of, from the past, but whatever memories people have, or family histories they may have at or around some of these sites. I think that would be really cool to include too.
Yeah, it would be awesome to have the same kind of meeting with more tribal citizens. And sorry that we couldn't get more to attend tonight.
That's all right. We'll figure out
a platform, because I think that would be just super fun for everybody, and we could learn some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we might want to just do a version of this sort of thing, live at the Cultural Center on one of these weekends or something.
Lynnika, do you ever spend time with like tribal members who know the language?
There are not tribal members who speak the language. I mean, it's the last fluent speakers passed away decades ago. So there are tribal members who have, some knowledge of some words and phrases that were passed down to them, but there's nobody today that speaks it as a full language. So yes, I do spend time with tribal members who, may have some memories from or some knowledge from previous generations, but the ones that I am in contact with, it's phrases and words and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I always think of, people still have memory of place, even if they might not remember the Wiyot, language, kind of like with
and sometimes people have some language that they don't realize is Soulatluk too, because years ago I was just doing some classes with a family and we were talking about kinship terms. We were talking about the word for grandmother, and it's gochk. And somebody that was participating was like, oh, our family has always called our grandma Gooch, and we just thought it was a family nickname, but it's actually from the language.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that people, have a lot more than they may realize, right? But nobody is using the language for, nobody still has the language as a full language is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Sadly.
Well, doing a great job making it come back. And so appreciate all the work you do, Lynnika. And just going up to even Wiya't or Bear River Ridge with Cheryl, brought back memories of that, of her remembering going up there, with her dad when she was a kid.
That's awesome.
And just that alone of knowing that these places were special. And gathering sites and camping and prayer sites.
Mhm.
I think it's just awesome to actually get documented.
Mhm. Yeah, there is a whole history here already, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and we're just trying to piece back together what we can from, yeah. Not a lot of it was documented. So between the documentation and hopefully living people's memories and current day uses and all of that, hopefully we'll put together something really amazing, I hope.
Oh, Ronerville Airport. um, Waddington's actually over here, which is a cool area.
What's that, Waddington?
Waddington, yeah. This said Waddington, but well, it says Waddington is south of the Eel River and it is straight opposite
Oh, I know Waddington from the
Ronerville. So that's the opposite of Ronerville.
yeah, I know Waddington from the Belcher Atlas.
Mhm.
Soulatluk. That name is used for a couple of different places and it's supposed to mean rocks falling.
Maybe falling off of steep wildcat, erosive, yeah, uplift. Who knows? But that's a pretty area out there, the whole Grizzly Bluff area. Well, I think we're about at time. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Lynnika.
Oh, thank you.
That's just like
Sorry for my little technical gaffes today, but
oh, no worries. That we try to keep this mellow.
yeah.
And so excited to host you again for the Central Wiggy and eventually Bottawatch
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, time is a waste, and so I may condense those and do a sample from both, but we'll see.
yeah, maybe so. Maybe you could do that. But yeah, I just love getting to collaborate with you. And yeah, you guys know how to find us if you have questions. And yeah, we do these meetings every month, so it's a time to check in with natural resources and other work with the tribe's doing. And yeah, if anyone has any parting questions, we'll take them now.
Sorry. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you, Lynnika.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynnika.
Oh.
All right, well, we'll officially close this November edition of the CAC. And thanks for all the hard work you guys do. And can't wait to learn more about Wiyot places and stories. So,
I can't
thanks,
wait for you
Lynnika.
to take me to some of these places, Adam.
All right, let's do it. We should have
I'm
a
gonna get my rain
strategy.
pants and my boots.
We should have a strategy session. I got to get that
We do. Yeah.
360 camera. Yeah, we should do a couple big days of just
For
driving,
sure.
taking pictures. Let's talk about that.
I'm all
Cool.
for it. Okay.
All right.
Oh,
Y'all take care. You guys are awesome. We'll see you
Okay.
soon.
do you watch?
You watch.